Sometimes all it takes is one scene, one moment to sell you on a new show. Maybe it's an action scene, a particularly appealing cut of animation, or a dramatic reveal. For me and Makeine, this was that scene.
例えば、Yanami さんと袴田が2人で出かけだろ。
The instant I saw this on my timeline, I had to know who this individual, this creature was. Talking about the macros of Somen 1 second, melon soda in hand, before putting in a voice act nearly on par with that scene from Bocchi. This is Anna Yanami, and she's not like other girls.
とにかく。
くれてる。はーはー。考えたさえくれ。いいの。
Too Many Losing Heroines is a show that is ostensibly about the girls who get rejected in anime romance situations and what happens afterwards. Except it is also simultaneously about this freak with no money who eats a lot. Yanami is the first, the best, and my favorite of the losing heroines, with her intro so hopelessly iconic in its shame that sometimes I wonder how she even functions as a regular person in public. She's your favorite weirdo's favorite weirdo who will steal your money and eat your food. She operates in an ethereal realm of blue-haired girls who make funny noises, carrying an entire franchise into the public consciousness. She's not just a freak, though. She brings levity when needed, but is also surprisingly lucid, grounding more than a handful of scenes and providing much-needed support for other characters. Her disdain for third-wheeling is deeply funny, but also deeply relatable, especially given the nature of her friend's relationship. When she's not borrowing his money, she is often the one that says what Nukumizu needs to hear, assisting him in a way that he may or may not realize. Her intro is, again, very shameful, but none of this story happens if she doesn't both have the audacity to come and trauma dump on Nukumizu and also the friendliness to continue speaking with him at school. She's unabashedly the driving force of this series. Makeine shines the most when Yanami is center stage because her unique brand of herself is enough to lift everything around her. This is not to say that Lemon, Komari, or Nukumizu can't carry scenes on their own, just that they are simply no match for the raw, unadulterated blue girl power. Nukumizu in particular is vital to the cause here though, the straight man that enables half of Yanami's bits to even work. They so seamlessly play off each other. His ability to not freak out and turn into a worse show's more generic MC is what keeps scenes intact. If you want to see what happens when he isn't able to control the beast, then please look no further than the fake boyfriend backstory episode. To be honest, I think he's needed to rein in all the girls, whether it's Lemon's obliviousness or Komari's shyness, but he really does shine the most when he's trapped in Yanami hell. His, well, normalcy is something that makes it easy to say that Makeine is a breath of fresh air, that it itself is not like other anime romances, harem adjacent or otherwise. And to be honest, I kinda don't agree with that. Yanami is certainly a unique brand of sauce, but I do think Makeine does slot pretty nicely into the niche it often pokes fun at. I do sort of detest hyper-comparison analysis because Makeine is an entertaining story even without prior knowledge of the genre tropes it's playing off of, but it is still playing off of them, subverting them even, and it assumes that you get why half of the jokes it's making are funny. So yes, it has a fresh enough angle here to be attention-grabbing, but it's still an angle that requires an attachment to anime's romance tropes. It isn't just that they're losing heroines, it's that they lost in the traditional generic ways that naturally creates the comedy. Childhood friend losing to the transfer student, childhood friend losing to the girl from cram school, and in a fun little twist, Kohai losing to the childhood friend. And let me be clear, Makeine leaning on these natural attachments for comedy is not a bad thing, it's still well executed. Successfully mining romance tropes for jokes or subversion or whatever is not easy. Osamake and Girlfriend Girlfriend are two of the worst shows I have ever seen. So the real breath of fresh air here is the fact that Makeine takes this kind of premise and doesn't eat itself alive. Like any good story, it quickly grows outside of the artificial premise and focuses on its character writing, telling interweaving stories about self-confidence and regret, displaying how messy relationships can be, not just for the people in them, but for the collateral around them. Essentially, Losing Heroines is good because it actually wants to explore the losing heroines. It's not just an excuse to crack jokes, it is actively interested in showing how people do or don't get over rejection, and then what kind of people they become after that. Like, I know a lot of the talk around this show was just blue girl go brr, and believe me, I agree, look at the start of this video, but you can't discuss why Makeine is good without acknowledging that it really does care about exploring its characters. it's not interested in maintaining the status quo, and while that sort of forward momentum leads to a somewhat unsatisfying single-core anime, I can't fault the story for having more ambition than what fits in 12 episodes. Despite that, we did get a pretty fulfilling anime original finale that pretty much added an entire point to my final score. The framing, the music, the conversation, I need to know what happened on that Ferris wheel. You can't do this to me, you can't just drop that ending and then leave, that's not fair. It also definitely helps that the adaptation is just really good. In terms of the positive public sentiment while it was airing, that is a lot of it these days. Bocchi still clears it, but in terms of properties I had never heard of prior to an anime, Makeine got one of the best glow-ups you could ever hope for. The freedom of the source being entirely text-based, I suppose. Still, that's as often a curse as a gift these days, so I will admit the production being this good for a light novel project is indeed a breath of fresh air. Anecdotally, it really does feel like light novel adaptations get the short end of the stick when it comes to anime. Whether it's middling animation or a woefully condensed story, light novel fans don't often eat this well. It was nice to see a series lifted up by its anime instead of being let down. And thank God for that, because how else would we have gotten Anna Yanami in our lives otherwise? For all the memes, she really is the cornerstone of the series, and while I'm glad all the girls get depth and exploration, I do miss when she's not at the forefront of the story, which is impressive given that a lot of the anime content is focused on the other girls. Yanami being so important does mean that her arc is a bit more lengthened, with, I imagine, her biggest emotional beats coming later in the source material. At the very least, we did get the stop forcing yourself to find a boyfriend convo in the finale, so that's pretty solid emotional closure for me. At this point, it's been a few months since Makeine finished airing, and predictably, the swarm of Yanami profile pictures and GIFs online has slowed to barely a trickle, moving on to the next hot seasonal character in your area. And that's fine. I think that's more of a referendum on consumption habits and social media attention spans than on the quality of Makeine, despite what some have attempted to bad faith argue. Too Many Losing Heroines is a genuinely fun, entertaining ride that I do think you should check out if you haven't already. Who knows, maybe one of the clips I played here earlier will be your very own cheating moment. Probably need a better name for that. It's a good anime, and I don't think that should be taken for granted. Not when it's packing nuclear level power at the main heroine position. Anna Yanami is not like other girls, and for that, I am extremely grateful.